Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. So I was having a look at some of my stencils and how I could use them in some different ways, and I kind of just want to do something a little bit different that I don't often do today, and it's good to try and use our supplies in as many different ways as possible. So that was kind of my goal, and I wanted to go bright and bold. So this one here is this is actually a Simon Hurley stencil. It's called the Loo. So I guess it looks like, I don't know, maybe the wallpaper pattern in toilets, or the lino, the floor pattern. I don't know, something like that maybe. But anyway, it's a cool pattern. And when I was looking at the patterns of the stencils, I knew what I wanted to kind of do with them. So I had something in mind. Now I have this is I think 100 pound paper here, and I actually don't like the color of the paper. It's not brilliant, but I thought it would be good to use up for this technique because I'm going to cover it up completely. So I'm using some Prom Queen from Simon Hurley ink. I am blending this on as a base layer, so I'm kind of not putting any effort into getting this perfectly smooth, and I am using a domed blending tool, which I find most easy for blending. And then I just have a little bit of the low-tack tape on my fingers so I don't get any fingerprints into the ink. And I definitely have been loving using these inks. I am very impressed by them. This is going to be some Guppy because I'm going to make some 2 cards today. So this is the second kind of color. And you could definitely use any dye inks, even pigment inks, anything that you can layer up. I could have used Distress Oxides for this, but sometimes I don't necessarily want that kind of chalky look that the oxides give, so that's why I was happy to use the dye inks today. But any inks, any would work, and you could even do this with things like watercolor or with acrylic paints. You could do one layer of paint, let it dry completely, and then add the next one over top, sponge the next one over top. I mean, you can do this with anything. This doesn't have to be inks at all. But here I am just finishing off my layer of Guppy, which is just a color of orange. And then these are my 2 base colors. Once I have done these 2, and the blending is not too bad at all, but I definitely wasn't trying to get a perfectly smooth blend because it will be covered up using the stencil. So I'm going to pop the stencil over top, and then for the orange one, the Guppy, I'm going to take Traffic Cone, which is this color here, and go over top with the stencil. You can use a little bit of tape to hold down your stencil too, or there's things like pixie spray and things like that you can add, which is just a tacky adhesive that you can spray onto the back of your stencils, but I don't use any of that. I don't like the idea of them kind of staying tacky when I store them or anything. It just seems like more effort to me. So I am just happy using some low-tack tape if I need to tape down my stencils. But other than that, I just hold them in place. And there is the first piece all done. So I am going to move on to the second one. So I used the Prom Queen for underneath this, and I'm going to use Crown Me, which is a purple color, to go over top. Now I was kind of looking for some bold colors to go together for this project. So orange and purple are opposites, and I wanted them to go side by side for this project. And when I was looking for stencils that I could use, having a look through my stash, there are lots of stencils that I thought I could use for this one, but this one was just so clean cut for me, and I knew that it would be really easy to follow this pattern. So this was a good choice for this technique, but I reckon if you have a look through your stash, you'll be able to find lots that would work as well. So I have finished my 2 panels here, and now I'm going to cut these up. You can see the lines and you can see where there are squares in this pattern. Now there are a few different lines that you could have followed, but I kind of just wanted to make sure I got the most out of my panel that I had blended. So I went for kind of the most obvious squares to me, but there are definitely several different patterns in the stencil. And I'm cutting them into, it ended up being 3 strips, and I end up getting 3 squares each time. So I end up being able to cut 9 little kind of tiles from this pattern. And I guess that kind of makes sense when I think about it, when the stencil is named the Loo. That definitely makes sense. But anyhow, I did this for both panels. So I cut down the purple one and the orange one. and these are going to go together. This was nice and easy using a trimmer. This trimmer has a wire guide, so I was able to kind of get pretty exact on, but I think you really get used to the trimmer that you have and you kind of know where it's going to cut, so this wasn't tricky at all. And as I said, I was able to follow the lines of the stencil really easily. So once this is all cut, I am going to pop these onto some copy paper, which is just printer paper, really thin, cheap paper, because I am going to die cut this and I want to be able to cut through all of these layers. So the thinner, the better. And then I'm obviously just following a little pattern to create a little 3x3 square here. And of course I'm able to make 2 of these. So I kind of went ahead and made 2. I will focus on kind of finishing off one card, but I'll show you the other cards that I finished as well. I will link to any of the supplies that are still available. I try and use supplies that I have. It's really important to use what we have in our stash. So sometimes things that I have or I use are discontinued or not available anymore, and I really do apologize, but sometimes that happens. Otherwise, I will try and link everything down below that I can still find for you. But honestly, you'll be able to do this with things that you have in your stash already. So now to turn these backgrounds into cards. I have some 5x5 inch card bases there, and I have some silver glitter paper and some gold glitter paper. I have this square die here and it cuts a frame. It's kind of decorative pattern on the inside and then just a dotted straight line on the outside, and I'm pretty sure this isn't available anymore, but I'll see what I can find. And I'm going to cut this out of both the gold and the silver paper. Now I can keep that bit for the inside because I will use that in a little minute. These are kind of different glitter papers. One die cut really nicely and the other has a slightly plasticky feel to it. So that one die cut nicely as well, but it was definitely different. Then I'm going to take my little tiles that I have created and I'm going to use the same square die cut and run these through again. I'm making sure I line it up so it's relatively even on all the tiles. I kind of want to get it roughly centered, and then I'm going to do that for both of the tiles that I created as well. And you can see here it die cut pretty nicely, even though it's cutting through some thick paper and the copy paper together as well. So first of all, we're going to put together the silver card. I have my card base here, which is 110 pound Nina Solar White. Then I'm going to add on my sparkly silver border. I'm just adding this with some liquid glue. This is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and I just pop it into these little squeezy bottles for nice and easy use. And I did measure and make sure that the card bases were going to be the same size as that square die cut, but it would be fun to leave a little border as well. And then this bit should just be able to kind of puzzle piece right into the center, and I think you can turn it any way and it fits perfectly, so that was nice and easy to line up. And then for what I'm going to put in the middle, I have a little piece of vellum here that I want to adhere down, but my trick for adhering vellum as a background is to just add some double-sided adhesive onto the whole background of the vellum. And then I have a die here which I'm going to die cut. This is the hello word and it is going to be the word, but I'm going to cut the background, the shadow, from the vellum, and then I'm going to cut the actual word hello from the silver glitter paper that I cut from the inside of my square. So that is kind of a nice delicate scripty hello, which is going to go on top of the vellum. I didn't add any double-sided adhesive or stick-it adhesive to the back of this one because the silver glitter cardstock is pretty thick to begin with. So I thought it would be just as easy to add a little bit of liquid glue. And I do need to hold it down for a second because I am adhering it onto vellum, which is kind of plasticky, but it will adhere down perfectly fine. The multi-medium is a really strong glue, and even better because if it squishes out the side or gets a little bit out the side, then it is completely matte. There is no shine and I won't be able to see it at all, which is really important for card making. Then using the Letter It stamp set, this is the All the Little Things. I've used this in so many videos. And I am going to stamp out the words awesome friend because it's going to say hello awesome friend. And this is going to be down the bottom here. I am just going to freehand cut this, but if you have a die that would do this, then that would work just as well or even better, but I'm going to cut a couple of little fishtails in the end of either side. I probably do have a die that would do this somewhere, but honestly, sometimes it's just as easy to get out your scissors and it works just as well. I am going to take off the release paper from that vellum and it gets rid of that kind of brown color, and it's going to go right up in the center. And I feel like this doesn't take away quite so much from the pattern. Even though it's got a nice bold sentiment in the middle, you can still see those tiles really clearly. Then I have a few little silver gems and things. I'm going to add just a few of these because, again, I don't want to kind of take over the pattern. And I didn't feel like putting lots and lots of gems on so that I would kind of follow the pattern. There's just a few there for decorative purposes only. I am going to show you a quick snap of the other card that I made using the gold glitter paper. I didn't love this one as much, and I actually ended up to come back and redo it because I didn't quite like where I had gone with the card. So I did pull some bits and pieces off and kind of put it together later, but I don't have any video of that. I'm afraid I was well done, and this card was being edited by the time I changed my mind about it. So here is the gold one, which I did, and then for this one I just added a few gems as well. And this one I kind of did follow the pattern, and I did add some kind of big gold gems. I mean, it looked fine, but I just, sometimes when you're card making, it doesn't just quite sit right with you, and this one kind of felt like that. So anyway, I have redone this one and used that gorgeous tile pattern that I created in the background to begin with. Here are the two cards, and I hope that you enjoyed this video today. Have a look in your stencil stash and see what you can find to cut up the different patterns and pop them together. I had a whole lot of fun doing some inking and die cutting today, so I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!